Fellow citizens of Waycross, Georgia, we are grateful that you've tuned in today. We have received our executive order from our governor at this time, and we want to share with you some of the highlights so that you might be able to understand how to effectively keep and practice what has been mandated. According to the governor, today at 6 p.m., April the 3rd, we'll start our stay in place or shelter in place order. What businesses and professionals must cease in person of operations based on the order? Bars, nightclubs, gyms, fitness centers, bowling alleys, theaters, live performance venues, operators of amusement parks, dine-in services at restaurants and private social clubs. There are some exceptions: takeout, curbside, pickup delivery, and dine-in services at hospitals, healthcare facilities, nursing homes, or other long-term care facilities. There's waxing, threading, eyelash extensions, cosmetic treatments, hair designers, body art studios, beauty shops and salons, barbershops, including home barbershops and beauty shops, cosmetology schools, hair design, barbering schools, aesthetic schools, nail care, and licensed massage therapists. These are all forbidden and or, at this particular time, closed for the time. All other entities may continue to operate subject to specific restrictions, and those restrictions vary on whether your entity is critical infrastructure. There are some terms that are given. Critical infrastructure has a definition, and if you would like to understand what it is, it just says for critical infrastructure entities, if your business or your organization will continue in person, the state encourages implementation of 16 requirements. The definition of critical infrastructure and 16 recommendations are listed in what is called Attachment A. A question that may be asked: how does the order apply to individuals and families? The basic rule: all residents and visitors of Georgia are required to shelter in place in their residences from 6 p.m. on Friday, April the 3rd, 2020 to 11:59 p.m. on Monday, April 13th, 2020. The shelter in place means remaining in their residences and taking every possible precaution to limit social interaction to prevent the spread or infection of COVID-19. There are some exceptions to the basic rule. Number 1, engaging in essential services. Number 2, working in critical infrastructure. Number 3, engaging in minimum basic operations, and then performing necessary travel is number 4. Now, what are essential services? This means obtaining necessary supplies and services for your household, engaging in essential for health and safety of your household, and engaging in outdoor exercise activities so long as you are at least 6 feet between people who do not live in your household. You can go to a grocery store, you can have medical appointments, and the pharmacy. You can go to pick up food or have food delivered to your house. You can leave your house to buy supplies to clean or maintain your house. You can go outside to exercise, and you can also leave your house in an emergency. The key takeaway is that you need to stay in your house as much as possible. But we recognize there are circumstances when you will need to leave. Keep those circumstances rare, consolidate trips as much as possible, and use takeout, curbside pickup, and delivery services whenever possible to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Necessary travel has been defined as well, and also the question is asked, how does this order apply to local governments? No county or municipal government is allowed to have more than 10 people gathered in a single location unless there is at least 6 feet between each person at all times. The governor's order supersedes all local ordinances to the extent that they conflict and states that no local ordinance can be more restrictive or less restrictive. In short, at this time, the governor has not deputized local law, but he has deputized our sheriffs to come in to enforce what has been posted. A couple of questions that have been asked, and I want to kind of address them through what is called Appendix B, and I'll read the question and then give the answer. Appendix or Attachment B is non-critical infrastructure, which was mentioned earlier. Your non-critical infrastructure entity shall comply with social distancing rules to meet the definition of minimum basic operations. Social distancing, no business, establishment for profit or nonprofit corporation, organizations, or county or municipal government is allowed to have more than 10 people gathering in a single location, again, unless there are 6 feet between the persons. 20 requirements. The first one is screening and evaluating workers who exhibit signs of illness, such as a fever over 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, having cough or shortness of breath. Requiring workers who exhibit signs of illness to not report to work or to seek medical attention. Enhancing sanitation of the workplace as appropriate. And the fourth thing, requiring hand washing or sanitation by workers or appropriate places within the business location. Number 5 is providing personal protective equipment as available and appropriate to the function and location of the worker within the business location. Number 7, prohibiting group gatherings of workers during working hours, permitting workers to take breaks and meals outside in their office or personal workspace or in such other areas where proper social distancing is attainable, implementing teleworking for all possible workers, and implementing staggered shifts for all possible workers, holding all meetings and conferences virtually wherever possible, and delivering intangible services remotely wherever possible, discouraging workers from using other workers' phones, desks, office, or other work tools and equipment. Of course, that list is a little lengthy, but I wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to ask and answer the common questions that have been asked of us. First one, do I need a letter to prove that I can keep working? No. You do not need a letter from your employer or government to prove that you fall into one of the exceptions for essential services, necessary travel, critical infrastructure, or minimum basic operations. If you have questions about critical infrastructure, please contact the Department of Economic Development. You can email covidcomments@georgia.org for assistance or visit georgia.org for more information. What happens if I violate the governor's executive order? If you violate any of the terms of the order, you are committing a misdemeanor, which is a crime in the state of Georgia. For example, if you are not sheltering in place and none of the 4 exceptions for essential service, minimum basic operations, critical infrastructure, or necessary travel applies to your activities, you receive a warning from the law enforcement and risk facing criminal charges if you fail to comply. What does this order mean for church services and funeral services? No business, establishment for profit or nonprofit corporations, organizations, or county or municipal government is allowed to have more than 10 people gathering in a single location unless there is at least 6 feet between each person at all times. This rule applies to church services and funeral services. Unfortunately, several community outbreaks can be directly attributed to recent in-person church services and funeral services. Public health officials strongly discourage gatherings of people for these services due to high-risk transmission of novel coronavirus. For elderly Georgians and chronically ill, exposure to novel coronavirus can be deadly. Please comply with the governor's order to stop the spread of COVID-19. Number four, fourth question, can I go to state parks or play sports outside like golf? Yes. You can visit parks and play sports outside, including golf, subject to certain restrictions. Gatherings of more than 10 people are banned unless there is at least 6 feet between each person at all times. If people congregate in certain areas of a state park or golf course, for example, law enforcement will warn them to disband. If they fail to comply, they may face criminal charges. Those four questions have been asked and answered. I've given a list of the things that may be helpful to you. If you have any questions, you have the numbers that have been given to you to call and the websites. And citizens of Waycross and Ware County, I just encourage you, stay safe, stay well, and look out for one another by keeping your distance. Have a great day.